When you think of American sports, you probably think of baseball, football, basketball, maybe NASCAR or hockey. But what if I told you that in 1776, when America was fighting for independence, people were already playing sports? Not exactly the sports we know today, but surprisingly close. In fact, some of today's most popular games can trace their roots back to the Revolutionary War era. So what were Americans playing when the Declaration of Independence was signed? Were they throwing footballs? Playing baseball? Holding boxing matches? The answer is actually fascinating. Welcome to Let's Talk Sports Spotlight. Today we're traveling back 250 years to explore the sports, games and competitions that entertained Americans in 1776. And trust me, some of these sports look surprisingly familiar. Before we jump into specific sports, it's important to understand something. There were no professional leagues, no ESPN, no stadium scoreboards, no championship trophies, and definitely no million-dollar contracts. Sports in 1776 were local. Most games were organized by families, villages, taverns, military units, churches, community gatherings. Rules often changed from town to town. One village might play a game completely differently than another. In many cases, sports were less about entertainment and more about community, survival, and military preparedness. That means many sporting activities served multiple purposes. A shooting competition wasn't just fun. It helped develop skills needed for defense. Horse racing wasn't just exciting, it helped evaluate valuable horses. Sports were woven directly into everyday life. If there was one sport that could claim the title of America's most popular organized spectator sport in 1776, it was horse racing, especially in colonies like Virginia, Maryland, South Carolina, Pennsylvania. Horse racing attracted huge crowds. Colonial racing wasn't exactly like today's Kentucky Derby. The most common form was called quarter racing. The concept was simple. Two horses, a straight quarter-mile course. First one to the finish wins. And yes, people wagered heavily. Crowds gathered, owners bragged. Local reputations were made and lost. Sound familiar? Not much has changed. Today, Americans think of baseball as the national pastime, but in 1776, cricket was king. The sport had arrived from England and became extremely popular throughout the colonies. Matches could last for hours, sometimes days. Players used wooden bats and wickets similar to those used today. Many historians believe cricket helped influence the development of baseball. But cricket wasn't alone. Colonists also played folk games, including baseball, rounders, stool ball, wicket. These were in modern baseball, but they contained many familiar ideas. Running bases, hitting a ball, recording outs, scoring runs. The DNA of baseball was already beginning to emerge. One of the biggest myths in sports is that baseball appeared out of nowhere. The truth is much more interesting. In 1776, children and adults were already playing games called baseball. These games vary dramatically by region. There were no official rules, no standardized field dimensions, no major leagues, but players understood the basic concept. Hit the ball, run, score, avoid getting out. It would take decades before baseball evolved into the sport we know today, but the foundation was already there. Imagine telling someone in 1776 that one day the Philadelphia Phillies would play before tens of thousands of fans. They probably wouldn't believe you. Now let's talk about football, or rather, what passed for football in 1776. These games were rough, really rough. There were few rules. Players kicked balls, chased opponents, pushed each other, and generally created organized chaos. Some versions resembled modern soccer. Others looked more like rugby. None resembled today's NFL. Still, these early football games planted seeds that would eventually lead to both modern soccer and American football. So yes, in a very distant way, the roots of the National Football League can be traced back to colonial fields and village greens. One sport that absolutely existed in 1776 was lacrosse. Long before European settlers arrived, Native American nations played the game throughout North America. Matches could involve dozens or even hundreds of players. Fields stretched for miles. Games sometimes lasted all day. Lacrosse was a merely recreation. It carried cultural, spiritual, and diplomatic significance. European settlers were fascinated by the sport. Many observed games and documented what they saw. Today, lacrosse remains one of the fastest growing sports in America, and its roots stretch back centuries before independence. In 1776, shooting competitions were everywhere, and unlike today, they served an important practical purpose. The American colonies depended heavily on skilled marksmen. Leaders encouraged shooting contests as a way to improve readiness. Even John Adams supported marksmanship practice. Competitors tested accuracy using muskets, rifles, pistols. Prizes varied. Sometimes money, sometimes livestock, sometimes simple bragging rights. For many communities, shooting matches were among the biggest sporting events of the year. Combat sports existed too, though often unofficially. Wrestling was common across the colonies. Different regions developed different styles. Boxing existed as well, but it was primitive compared to today's professional bouts. There were no weight classes, no sanctioned commissions, no television deals. Most boxing contests were informal and occasionally illegal, yet they remained popular. People have always enjoyed testing strength, toughness, and endurance. That certainly wasn't invented in the modern era. Americans in 1776 enjoyed plenty of additional activities: swimming, fishing, hunting, boat racing, foot racing, ice skating during winter months, shinny, a predecessor to hockey, and various throwing contests. Remember, life itself was more physical. Many people walked miles daily, worked outdoors, and spent significant time in physically demanding environments. Sports often emerged naturally from everyday activities. Now here's a fun question. What would a sports fan from 1776 think if they visited America today? Imagine showing them the Super Bowl, the World Series, the NBA Finals, or the Stanley Cup Finals. They would probably be shocked. Massive stadiums, instant replay, television broadcasts, athletes earning millions. Yet beneath all the technology and spectacle, they'd recognize something familiar: competition, community, pride, the desire to win. Those things haven't changed in 250 years. The sports of 1776 may look primitive compared to today's games, but they laid the foundation for America's sporting culture, from cricket to baseball, from folk football to the NFL, from Native American lacrosse to modern college championships. The seeds were already planted during the Revolutionary Era, and that's what makes sports history so fascinating. The games evolve, the rules change, the equipment improves, but the love of competition remains exactly the same. Whether it's a colonial horse race in Virginia or a sold-out championship game in Philadelphia, people have always loved sports, and they probably always will. If you enjoyed this trip back to 1776, let us know in the comments. Which colonial-era sport would you most like to try? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time!